Hello and welcome back to the X-Files Revisited. We are on to episode 19, entitled Shapes. So Brian, is this a memorable episode for the super fan like yourself?
It doesn't really stick in the mind as, an X-Files classic, but it doesn't really also stick in the mind as one that's terrible. It's just one of them that kind of... It's a filler episode, I think. It feels like a bit of a filler episode. Werewolf story. If you like werewolf kind of movies, it's maybe the episode for you. But I know you do like werewolf movies, so we'll find out.
I stuck it on, and when I was watching it, I was thinking, do I remember this? Or is there a movie that's similar to this? And I just couldn't pinpoint it at all, but there was some points that seemed a little bit familiar for me, but let's just dive straight into this episode. So we open up with a taxidermist's nightmare, as all these animal heads are all over the walls, and then you have two men loading guns and just generally looking menacing. And then you go out to the barn, they're in a farm, and they're looking for something, and it's quite kind of ominously shot and looks very kind of horror-centric. One finds a dead animal lying in the ground and then is suddenly attacked by something large and animal-like shaped from the barn. When
clearly a werewolf.
Oh yeah. Yes, straight away.
There's literally no mistaking it. We've seen it a thousand times in so many werewolf movies where the animal gets shot and then the next minute there's a person lying there on the ground. And given the fact that we know how werewolf movies play out, you know that Lyle, who has just been bitten, is clearly going to be a werewolf.
Mm-hmm. I liked this opening scene because it was a little bit different. You had the two guys who were kind of cowboyish. It didn't happen in a forest, which was really nice and unique for something that happened straight away. You've got the werewolf-centric episode. It's called Shapes, so you know exactly what you're going to get. And like you said, if you're into these kind of movies, into horror movies, werewolf movies, you should be kind of hooked on this opening scene, even though you roughly know what's about to happen. And I was hooked. I liked it. I liked the play of shadows as well when they were walking about the barn, and some of the high angles that was used. It was very interestingly shot, I thought.
It's nicely shot, I think. I do like it. And I like the creature effects as well. They don't go overboard with them in this episode, but we do get to see that it's a Yeti kind of looking werewolf, but we get this kind of close up as well on the face where you see just like a half of the face. Like I say, it's not going to blow you away special effects, but it's just enough to kind of sate the werewolf fan in me. So
it's probably budgetary as well. I mean, and a good choice of angles, because if it showed you the full head, you'd probably have been like, it's quite fake. But by showing you this kind of sort of like the nostril and the eyes, you don't get the full fit, and it just looks kind of creepy and spooky. I really did like it. So after the theme tune in that way, we move on to the man who shot Wolf Boy, and he's like giving a statement. He's not a colour. In the room is Mulder and Scully and the lawyer, because there's always got to be a lawyer. He states that these animals have been getting attacked for a couple of months now, and Mulder kind of hints at the supernatural, which he is prone to do.
Yeah, I like this guy.
Yes.
I like the guy that they get to play the dad. He kind of reminds me of the dude from Hulk, the Eric Bana one.
Mm-hmm. He plays Ross.
I'm
sure it's Sam something.
Yes, Sam... Oh, man.
Elliot.
Yeah. Sam Elliott, that's the one, yes. Awesome. Yeah, he reminded me a lot of Sam Elliott. He was like a budget Sam Elliott. But, no, I liked him, and I like the little speech they give him. You can tell that he's not the most wholesome character. He's probably quite a flawed character, but you also can see that he's not an evil man. He's not a bad man, and I like what he says. You get a genuine sense that he feels bad about having killed this young man. So.
And this scene also gives you a few sort of key elements that are going to carry through the rest of the movie. You get the fact that the lawyer mentions that there's a court case, there's animosity between these people and the Indians about a sort of land dispute. You also get the fact that Lyle has been attacked or clawed or bitten or whatever, and we all know, like you said, what that's going to mean later on in the story as well. So, like, I noticed in this opening scene as well, you don't really have Mulder and Scully saying too much. You know, they ask a couple of questions, they don't really hint it too much. They basically just let this guy talk and say his story. Which is, it's unusual.
Well, it actually, I was going to pick up on that a few scenes later down the line, because I don't know about you, but for me, it takes far too long for Mulder or Scully, for that matter, to at least say out loud what this obviously, clearly is. You know, it's a werewolf. You know, like given Mulder's history, you'd think Mulder would be straight on this. Hey, Scully, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, werewolf. But it just doesn't. They really drag it out. But like they have this conversation as well. The son Lyle, the one who's bitten, who we know is going to turn into a werewolf, he takes Mulder and Scully aside and kind of just has a quick word with them. And there's a little exchange between him and Scully where he talks about how he's felt this presence in the woods for quite some time now. And he says, it gave me the creeps. And Scully looks at him and goes, the creeps? and he's like, yeah, don't you ever get the creeps? And it was just a weird exchange of dialogue. And it's like, I can't tell if Scully has never heard of the expression the creeps, in which case has she been hiding under a rock all her life, or whether she was just kind of freaked out by where he was going with it, as if to say, well, kind of, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by the creeps? Specify, you know. But yeah, it was just a little weird exchange, and I'm not sure the scene is entirely necessary either, to be honest.
No, probably not. And then you kind of move on from there, and Scully's walking the crime scene, and she thinks it's an open and shut case. Anyone could have investigated this, but Mulder finds a sort of a footprint, paw print, and then sort of Scully's like, "There's nothing too strange about this case, Mulder. Why did you want it?" And then, just out of nowhere, Mulder just whips out this skin that he's got,
a glove,
and a pair of tweezers.
A skin glove.
Yeah, and you're like, the first thing that popped in my head is, how long has he been walking about with this behind his back, just waiting for her to say, you know, like, there's nothing strange, just so he can go, ba-bam. Hand.
Yeah, he don't go running straight over to go, look what I found, what I found, it's a skin glove. And what the hell?
He's literally got it behind his back, just waiting, just ready. I just thought it was quite funny.
Those prints as well. There's the if you look at the footprints, it's a human foot and then it's a wolf foot. So that means the dude was butt naked before he changed into a werewolf.
Yeah.
Just saying, you know.
So after that we go straight into the car, looking at the skin glove. And Scully comes out with it. They don't look like the kind of people that would skin somebody. You know? I'm just like, what a weird thing to say, because it obviously looks, it doesn't look as if that's been like cut off somebody's body. It looks like it's been shed.
Yeah. Again, like I said before, how is it that we've got to this point, you know, human footprints changing to animal footprints, a beast seemingly attacking someone, but when they're shot, they're actually a human being. Yeah. A guy's been bitten, he's got claw marks. How in the hell has no one so far mentioned werewolf? It just, like, you know, like for Mulder, again, he should be all over this.
I mean, this point you're saying about nobody noticing that it's a werewolf, this becomes to one of my great bugbears right near the end of the movie at a climax, but we'll get there at some point. But there's something there that just annoys me a little bit. And then we kind of move on from that scene and we go straight onto the Indian reservation. And this is the sort of big centric part of the episode. And the X-Files do this a lot. They kind of hone in on one kind of group of people every now and again and focus a sort of story around about them. But so they're at the Indian reservation and they're looking for the sheriff. They get such a warm welcome from these people who are so happy to see them.
It's like the most unwelcoming bar in the world.
Yeah, I mean, you could almost hear like the record being scraped off, you know. The old guy sitting in the corner just going, "Go home, FBI." You know? Yeah,
I call him Wounded Knee. I don't know what this thing with Wounded Knee is, but I know there was a film called Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, which I did watch. It was a bit poor, to be honest, but so this guy says he was there at Wounded Knee. I don't really see what the relevance was, but only because I can't remember for the life of me what Wounded Knee was all about. But there's this nice exchange where he says, "You shouldn't be here, FBI," and Mulder's like, "How did you know?" And he's like, "I can smell you from a mile away." And Mulder just says, "Well, I'm told that even though my deodorant is made for women, it's strong enough for a man." So yeah, it's just like typical Mulder. It's
just
great
cracking
exchange.
a joke. Just any kind of tension, he tries to alleviate it with a joke. I thought this one was pretty good, to be fair.
Yeah.
And then they meet the sheriff, and
Wounded Knee first tells Mulder and Scully that Parker killed what they were looking for, and this riles up the sister of the man who was killed. So
it's Gwen, isn't it?
Yeah, Gwen. So she's there in the bar and she's hearing him, and so this guy, obviously the Wounded Knee guy, he clearly believes in the superstition about this animal. But Gwen's not having any of it. So right off the bat, you know, we've got this kind of tension set up within the reservation community of tradition versus, you know, the modern world, which is basically kind of what this episode is really all about. You take this culture, the Native American, and you see how they've been kind of forced to toe the line with the modern world, to toe the line with the Western world, basically. So, yeah.
So the sheriff is taking them over so they can see the Good Snake? Gooden
Snake, yeah.
Gooden Snake's
Gooden
body.
Snake. Yeah.
And I think it's Scully wants to do an autopsy, but because of the Indian beliefs, that it's not going to happen. Pretty much, and they have a little tete-a-tete about, you know, doing it for the greater good, but he understands his people better than they do and kind of stands his ground. You kind of find out that the deceased and his sister Gwen have filed a lawsuit about the land dispute between the Parkers and them as they're looking at the body, and then they see that Gooden Snake's got claw marks on his body.
Yeah, I mean, like, just before we get into that, I got to say, what do you think of this character, Sheriff Tuscany?
He's not too enamoured straight away. He just kind of seems to be somebody that just seems as if he's stuck in the middle ground between two different parties. He doesn't feel as if he belongs completely with the Indies, doesn't feel as if he belongs completely with the law force, and just seems that he can't be bothered with either side of it, to be fair.
You see, that I like this guy. I actually like this character, and it's because of that reason. Because I do feel like he's caught between a rock and a hard place. I feel like he kind of wants to help Mulder and Scully, but the price that he'd have to pay for that socially with his community isn't worth it. And again, it's this tension of, you know, tradition versus modernity, and like I like his exchange with Mulder and Scully where he tells them, "I'm not a park ranger. I'm not here to to bend to your whim kind of thing. I've got a job to do. But yeah. So yeah, where were we? We were up to.
We're at the autopsy. Not the autopsy. They're looking at the body. And,
Yeah.
they discover that the body has fangs. Which is a nice.
Anybody gonna throw the word werewolf out there?
Not at all. Don't be silly, Brian. But it's nice. It's like something. It makes you just. I hadn't really seen it before. I wasn't expecting it either. To be fair. So they're going to go and check dental records to see if he had these fangs before, but I kind of doubt it.
Yeah, I mean, Scully reaches big time with some crap about calcium phosphate salts developing abnormally with age. And Mulder just shakes his head and sticks 2 fingers up at his teeth. And it's just like... I love Mulder's reaction. It's so like... He's never usually that kind of... switched off to what Scully's saying. He usually has a bit of a pithy comeback at times, but it's just really nice to see Mulder literally shake his head as if to say, Scully, what the hell are you smoking? Yeah. And like he like the way he points at his teeth, like, the dude's got fangs. What on earth? It's like, it's just a really great moment, and it's kind of like a blink and you miss it because the camera is behind Mulder or at the side of Mulder, so you almost don't see it. So if you're not watching for it, you'll miss it. But it is a really nice kind of nice moment.
So kind of jump from there into the burial for Good and Snake, and Mulder and Scully are watching this from a few steps back, and Scully asks what Mulder isn't telling her, and that's when oh dear goodness, Mulder whips out the very first ever X-File created by J. Edgar Hoover himself.
Yeah.
It's all about werewolf attacks, a history of shapeshifters, and Scully's kind of stupefied.
Yeah. I just put in my notes, Mulder and Scully sit in their car at the cremation. Scully, what aren't you telling me? It's a bloody werewolf. It's just, come on, man. We're like, what? Good 15, 20 minutes into the episode, and only now do we get into werewolf territory. Just before that scene, though, there was a nice moment between the sheriff and Mulder, in which Mulder asks him outright, Sheriff, do you believe Joe Goodsnake's spirit is in that room? Because they're trying to get the permission to get the autopsy, and he's denying it. And the sheriff just says, all I know is soon you're going to leave, but I have to stay here and answer to these people. And that basically sums up his character, which is that he's got no obligation to help these people, because if he does, he's the one who's going to take it in the neck from everyone. So, but yeah, the very first X-File was a werewolf case.
Yeah. I don't even know how he connects these two, to be fair. It's tenuous at the best, I think, because it's like, is it an attack at something or other? I can't remember. And then you've got this Parker who shot somebody in their land. I don't know how he connects the two of them, but it's Mulder, so we just kind of go with it, I think. Yeah,
it's something. There's a thing about once every 8 years, but I think that comes later when Wounded Knee is talking to him. I don't know the guy's name, but yeah, it is a bit kind of vague. It's kind of one of them. If you don't go back and repeat it and see what it was they said, you kind of miss it, really. But after the werewolf case, the first X-Files case is revealed to us. Scully says it's just lycanthropy. The belief that someone can turn themselves into a werewolf. So crazy people, basically. So that's what she's putting it down to. And I kind of wrote at this point that if Mulder's motto is "I want to believe," which he says in this episode to Wounded Knee, then Scully's should be "I don't want to believe," because given the amount of evidence that is clearly on display so far in this episode, she is literally flat out being.
I think maybe her motto should be: "There's always a reason not to believe."
No matter how hard you search.
Yeah, there will be some kind of reason. So then you've got that scene with Scully talking to Gwen.
Yeah, so Scully tries to have a heart-to-heart with Gwen, who basically gives her a claw.
And at this point, I was like, is this kind of some sort of death charm or something? But no, it's not even as cool as that. It's never mentioned again. We never see it again. It is a throwaway item, pretty much. And then
well, I think it's supposed to... I think it's supposed to give you a little inkling as to how how her brother got bitten in the first place. Like maybe that's the claw of the very beast that changed him. But yeah, like you say, it's just you kind of think that maybe it could be like a curse thing, couldn't it? Maybe she's putting a curse on them for the wolf to go after them. But it's a bit like whatever, you know.
And then we have the sheriff appearing, and Mulder goes up to him, compliments him on his police work, and then asks him about shape-shifting. Which
did you like the little eagle sound effect?
Yes.
Because we're obviously in Indian territory, so we've got to hear
eagles are in abundance.
It was so on the nose. It was like literally Charlie just says, "This is a funeral," and then you just hear this in the background of this eagle.
It's a good sound, but it's not the best, because what we have next is the burning of the body and the men chanting, and they spend way too long just showing you these guys' tonsils vibrating as they just kind of scream into the camera. My goodness.
I know that Chris Carter, who obviously is the creator of the X-Files, he does have quite an interest in Indian culture. You know, he will bring Indians, Native Americans into the X-Files at several points, because he's interested in that world. He's interested in that history. So yeah, he definitely finds something of value in it, and I think he probably has researched some of the traditions here and like some of what's going on with this funeral thing. I won't be surprised if it's pretty faithful to the culture, because I just think that's, like I say, that's born out of his interest in the culture, and I think that's his way of kind of putting it on screen so that we, the viewers, can get a taste of it. But like you say, you feel like it does go on a bit long.
Yeah. And then we've got Cowboy Jr. Turns up at the funeral. Gwen shouts at him, and he genuinely seems pretty remorseful about the whole situation.
Yeah.
And then he sort of leaves, and then you've got Cowboy Senior, who's on the porch, and when he hears silence, he just the crickets stop and everything's just kind of quiet.
Yeah.
And then the wind chimes go, and then something attacks.
It's a good scene. I actually quite like it.
Yeah, I like it as well. I like the fact that the city place goes quiet.
Yeah. I like that you see. You get like a full wide shot of this werewolf attacking him, but it's out of focus. So it's framed really nicely. It's shot really nicely, and they do just enough to, like you said before, cover up the lack of budget. But it's still quite effective. From like my memories of this, I always remember that close up of the face of the werewolf's face, but I never remembered actually seeing the full body of it. So it was quite a surprise coming back to this and seeing that wide shot in which, you see this werewolf guy full on attacking this bloke. So
yeah, and it's a bit of a vicious attack as well when you see that kind of blurred image.
Yeah.
So then we have the Parker Senior crime scene, and then Scully says he's been attacked by a large predator, or made to look that way.
Yeah.
She's already rationalising it just in case anybody tries to get any supernatural ideas. And they
and
can realise...
we're sorry, go on.
No, on you go.
Well, I was just saying we're also given what I think is their attempt at giving us two possible suspects, because both Lyle and Gwen are missing, and it's like there's no mystery here. We know who did this.
And Scully gets a rational idea of what could have happened when she stumbles across a cage with a mountain lion in it. Which I don't know why they've got it caged. I know they say that they've got animals that wander in, but if that kind of wanders in, you don't just shoot into a cage.
It's like, come on, come on.
It's just a big cat. And Mulder's just... While this is going on, they're looking for the missing Lyle, like you said. Mulder's just roaming the forest, not caring about any murders like that, hunting for skin.
Yeah, he finds more skin.
Yeah, he certainly does. Scully's just kind of stoking about the farm. She finds the mountain lion and she sort of spots a naked Lyle in the brush, just kind of thing.
Oh man, it's like, come on, Scully. It's like, even you must have your doubts at this point. You find someone's been attacked brutally, and then you find a butt-naked man lying in the field just across the way. How are you not even suspect?
I'll tell you something. Scully's the one that has previously mentioned The Exorcist and Poltergeist. There's no way she's missed An American Werewolf in London or The Howling or any of those kind of ilk.
Definitely.
So you would expect her to make a comment about that. We kind of jump back to the farm or the body site, and the sheriff finds a claw in the body. Which is, it's weird that he's found it, not any of the medical examiners. But hey,
No. I thought the same thing. I'm like, why are they only just finding this now? The dude's in a body bag.
And it's not like a tiny little claw, microscopic. He pulls out something that's massive.
It's a beast.
And Mulder's just like, I've never seen anything like that before. And then he indicates to the sheriff that he wants to have an exchange of ideas. Which I like.
Scully takes...
On you go.
No, you go.
I've lost what I was saying.
All right. Scully takes Lyle to the hospital while Charlie takes Mulder to someone who can tell him what's going on. It's a werewolf, Mulder. It's like, does he really need someone to tell him what's going on? There's no mystery here.
It's
at
the
all.
one time Mulder's not on the ball about it at all. So I think we jump into the hospital, and Junior's there, and he says he was drinking and he can't remember anything. And Scully tells him that his father's dead. And he appears to be attacked by an animal. But she suspects murder. And he can't really remember anything. He mentions something about having a faint image of his father sitting on the porch, and then he kind of wonders if... He even indicates, was it because of him that the Indians retaliated and killed them? Which seems like... everybody just seems to suspect these poor Indians,
Yeah, maybe that's a commentary on people's attitudes towards the Native American. But
so like you were saying, Mulder's talking to the old Indian, and he tells him a story of basically every werewolf story ever. It's just pretty much a standard kind of story, but he paints a picture quite well as he's telling you. I kept expecting it to flash back and show you his story, but it never quite does that.
And I like the way he looks at Mulder and says, "You're more open to Native American beliefs than some Native Americans." And then he looks at Charlie, just gives him this like dodgy look. And But I feel like this episode is about identity, and how culture shapes that identity. Yeah, exactly. It's like Charlie is a man torn between two cultures. Mulder is a man who embraces anything outside of the culture in which he exists.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got these kind of two opposites, really. But yeah, it's it's a bit on the nose, I think, maybe, but it's definitely what the episode is about, I guess.
Absolutely.
And I prefer it when I feel like an episode is about something. You know, if I can draw something out of it like that, then it elevates it a little bit. Even though, like I say, we know exactly where this is going.
So like we said, the old Indian is telling a story, and he paints the picture very well. And then you hear a noise, and they run outside to find Gwen, try to break into a car and drive away. And
We also get Mulder's new Indian name, Stinky Fox.
Is that because he's deodorant? Because you can smell him coming. She tells a story about seeing something kill Parker. It's quite funny how she says she just went over there to mess up the kid.
I know, like she's just got no trouble. Like, I mean, the dude was a pretty big dude.
Yeah, quite well with weapons as well, you know.
Yeah. So she's very confident in her ability to go over and mess him up. It's not like he's this kind of 16-year-old wet behind the ears, you know, piece of fluff. He looked like he could probably take care of himself. So yeah.
Yeah, and then we have one of the best exchanges, which I really enjoyed. Is Mulder tries to call Scully, but she's not at the hospital. But some doctor, without checking any of Mulder's credentials or anything, just start telling him all this medical history about Lyle having ingested his father's blood. So you've got this doctor who doesn't bother checking credentials, just throws out this information willy-nilly, and the fact that he's released a patient without getting all his results back as well first. This guy must be finishing up for a holiday or something.
Worst doctor ever. Just a little side note as well about the fact that the sheriff is the one who takes Mulder to the man to hear the story, to the old man to hear the story, does show, I think, that he is a believer. Otherwise, he wouldn't entertain the fantasy, you know? So
it could be, or the way you could look at it as elders in the Indian culture are deemed the most influential, and by bringing this FBI man to speak to him to hear the story, he's given that elder his due and still solidifying his way in the community as well. He's kind of doing it to help out both sides. He's helping both Mulder and he's helping the community.
See, I didn't even, when I watched that didn't even click with me at all. But yeah, that actually makes more sense to me.
He's helping both of them, and he's helping himself.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good observation because obviously it's and again it's that Indian culture thing. So it's like working stuff in there from a writing standpoint to do with Indian culture without actually spelling it out. But of course, you know, if you are familiar with that culture, which I'll admit I'm not, but that makes sense. You're dealing with a culture that has elders, that has a system of respect. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. Good catch.
So we have Scully in the car with Wolf Boy, and then with a quick shot of like them pretty going to the house and the power's out. Oh God, would you believe it?
Lightning and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Mulder can't get her on the phone, and he says it must be the mountains. But this is the first time in the episode that they've actually mentioned they've had trouble getting anybody on the phone. It just seems to be now that the situation's getting dire that they can't reach her. And then you have like Lyle in the bathroom, and a fantastic scene where he starts to change. Yeah, and I really like that. I like the fact that his body was contorting and his skin just rips open, and it's got like the wolf hand under it. I mean,
they're going for like a full-on kind of American Werewolf in London kind of vibe, aren't they?
Really are
on a TV budget.
Yeah. And everything, even now, is subjected to putting up with that American Werewolf in London scene because it's so iconic, and I think this does
Yeah.
really well.
Yeah,
Really well.
definitely.
And I really quite liked it. So we have Mulder arrives at the house, and he walks into this deadly silent house that's in darkness. And he's looking about, looking for Scully. And it's really filled with this terrific music as well, really creating the scene. The walls are all scratched as though claws have been just ran down them. And then Mulder kind of shoots a figure in the dark. But just I want to jump back a wee bit because I've missed something that I wanted to talk about. Okay, and it's when Lyle is in the bathroom changing, and you've got Scully outside, and he's like growling and breaking, and
I've just read it. It literally just cracked me up. It's like when I laughed, then I was literally reading it on my paper, and I'm like, Scully, what are you doing? Why are you not running right now? You're banging on the door trying to get in.
Are you okay? Hello, Lyle.
The best bit, though, the absolute best bit, is when Mulder comes in, starts talking to her, and she explains what happened, and she says, and I quote, "He was sick, and the next thing I know, we were attacked by the mountain lion."
Yeah. Yeah, it's you actually see a hand coming through the door, a wolf hand coming through the door at her. It's black fur.
Good grief.
Mountain lions don't have black fur and they aren't 6 feet tall. But it's the most ludicrous part of the episode. But it's terrific because of it.
Scully's total denial, man, it just cracks me up.
And I love the fact that Scully's just like, it jumped at me and I dropped my gun and ran away. Because when Mulder finds her, she's pretty much hiding in a cupboard, which is unusual. So they kind of like they chase the thing down the hallway, and just as it's about to attack, the sheriff appears, and I'm not really too sure who shoots it. But the sheriff's got a shotgun anyway.
Yeah.
And when the body lands, it's the body of Junior. Lyle.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's
shock horror.
Yes. And then we just kind of jump to this weird scene where the Mulder and Scully are leaving the sheriff. And they're like, oh, Gwen was going to come along and say bye. And the sheriff's just like, nah, she left last night.
Yeah. He says maybe she saw something she wasn't ready to understand. Yeah. And Scully's like, maybe. And it's just like, obviously that comment is not just directed at Gwen, it's directed at Scully. Because, given the amount of full-on evidence that has been on display throughout this, Scully just doesn't want to understand it. It's not that she can't see it. It's blatant. She just doesn't want to. She's closed that door. She'd rather move on. She's not ready for it. So yeah, there you go.
And then Mulder has a wee bit of rapport with the old Indian guy. And then the final shot of the episode is the roaming forest, the trees, the sun setting, and a wolf howling. And,
Twilight.
And a collective groan of everybody watching it. But yeah, that's the episode. Do you want to give your wrap up on this one, Brian?
Yeah, it's a good episode. If you like werewolf movies, then I think you'll like this. If you've never seen a werewolf movie, if you don't know the rules of werewolf movies, then you'll love this. This will be like, I'd imagine this would really work for you. But if you go into this episode being a fan of werewolf lore and movies, then there quite simply is no mystery in this episode at all. So the fun of it, the entertainment of it, really does come out of the characters and seeing the werewolf in action, seeing the change, seeing who's going to get killed, how they're going to get killed, this, that, and the other. So it kind of works in that vein, a bit like a slasher film. So yeah, it's entertaining, but it's a bit stupid, and it's really, really surprising that nobody mentions the word werewolf until goodness knows how long. I mean, do they even mention the word? I think they might
at some
do.
point. It definitely says shapeshifter.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, the fact that they get through this without that, it's just staggeringly dumb to me. But I'll give it a 3 out of 5. I think it's entertaining. I don't get bored, even though you know what's coming. So yeah, it's filler basically, but it's entertaining filler.
Yep, but I'll agree with you as well. I gave it a 3 out of 5. I think it's good to the extent of very well done practical effects, some good music, some nice choice of shots throughout the episode. They treat it very much like a horror movie, and to really encapsulate that horror movie aesthetic, they've got the terrible plot line and bad acting to go with it, which I feel just sort of emphasises that. I had a lot of fun with this episode. I enjoyed it, and I like the fact that it touches upon the cultural aspects of a problem that was probably a little bit more prevalent round about that time as well, I believe. So no, I think all in all it was a good episode, very enjoyable. So Brian, the next episode that we will be reviewing will be Darkness Falls. Is this a big episode in your memory?
The funny thing with Darkness Falls, if my memory serves me correct, I could just be pulling this out of my a-hole, but I think I'm right in saying this. This is this episode, Darkness Falls got the highest viewing figures of season 1 when the show was first aired, which is a shame, because if that's the first episode that a lot of people tuned into, I think it could have seriously hurt the show, because I think a lot of those people maybe wouldn't have come back. Because from my memory, I don't remember it being a particularly great episode. I remember it being something of a kind of poor man's version of Ice. It's got that kind of vibe about it. But yeah, we'll get to that next time.
Brilliant. So as always, you'll be able to find our links to our social media in the box below, and we will see you next week on the X-Files Revisited with Darkness Falls. Thanks for listening.